Hello, Saints and Patriots. Apostle Claver T. Kamal Imani of RagingElePhantsRadio.com, your rebellious voice of Texas liberty. And this is the Texas Nationalist Movement's Legislative Action Workshop, getting ready for the 2019 legislative session, one of the most frantic 140 days you'll ever witness if you ever go to Austin. Our special guest right now is going to be State Representative James White from behind the Pine Curtain in HD 12, deep East Texas, Southeast Texas. Before we get to James, who's actually on the road and driving the marvel of 21st century technology. He's actually driving on the road and live video streaming. Isn't that wonderful? At the bottom,
I don't know yet.
At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button, and we'll be monitoring that window if you have any questions for the state representative or for yours truly. And this is a several-day event. We've got a whole lot more conversations to conduct, including tonight at 7 p.m., in which the main event is going to take place, that conversation dealing with the Alamo situation, featuring former Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson and the TNM's Daniel Miller. If you want to be a part of that, you have to reserve your video conference room seat. You need to go to tnm.me/TNMlaw, TNMLAW. For each one of these conversations during the workshop, a unique URL link is created for that conference room, that video conference room. So there's a little bit of clutter in your email inbox, but it's necessary, and it's the best way for us to do that. So if you want to register for even tonight's discussion on the Alamo, go to tnm.me/TNMlaw, TNMLAW, for Legislative Action Workshop. All the videos, if you missed any of the previous conversations, for instance, earlier today with David Thomas Roberts of Defiance Press, you can go to tnm.me, and all the videos are there. Please enjoy them, share them at your pleasure. James White, thanks so much for joining us today, man. We know that the legislative session is coming up here, and so things are fast and furious for those of you who hold elected office. Thanks so much for calling it audible and being able to squeeze us in for a few minutes, man. How have you been?
Hey, I've been blessed. First of all, let me give a shout out for the reason for the season, and that's our Savior Jesus Christ and His birth. But hey, bro, it's a great day in Texas. Whenever you can represent 5 of the greatest counties in Texas: Polk, Tyler, Jasper, Newton, and Hardin counties.
James is actually driving while he's talking to us. We really appreciate him. I won't ask him too many jarring questions. I don't want him to jerk the steering wheel. James, one of the things that you're known for, man, and in the past, it may have caused you to butt heads with some of the Saints and Patriots from across the state. You just have this steadfastness about your representation of your district. You've always said, as one of your mantras, I vote my district. Regardless what the influences may be outside of my district, I vote my district. And I think it'll lead us into our conversation today about the legislative success and the TNM for 2019. But that's something that you have been very steadfast. You've been insistent in your elected representation. I vote my district on whatever the issue is. James, talk about it. That's sort of been your compass.
Well, and because I trust my district. I know that my district is comprised of people who really take their faith seriously. I have a district where even though our homes may not be valued as much as homes in some other parts of the state, but we're a district that value property rights, our personal land rights. We're a district that values the Second Amendment. So I trust my district. And I trust that on most days, if not every day, my district is not going to put me in a position where I may have to take a vote that conflicts with my heart and my values. And so that's just it. I trust my district. You know, Claver, and you're a very astute student of history. Whether it was a Freedmanstown, where ex-slaves settled after emancipation, or whether it was settlers settling towns from, the eastern seaboard to Texas, all the way to the West Coast. If you go from town to town, what's so interesting is that our forefathers and foremothers, even before they completed building their homes, there are two buildings, and probably definitely one building that they did complete first. And that was a church, and then maybe a schoolhouse. And it was usually in the middle of each of these small settlements or towns. And so I see the vestiges of that in my district, that regardless of how we disagree, we believe the edification of your spirit and edification of your mind, the cultivation of your mind, those are two key ingredients for fostering freedom and liberty in a community, a state, and a country.
Talk with State Representative James White, first elected to the State House in 2010, and then again after redistricting, a very spirited fight in 2012, had tepid opposition in the 2018 general election from a Democrat, but once again was silently victorious, we're very happy to say. James, I wanted to talk about your representation of your constituents and your determination to do that. You trust them because your district, although the mothership, the headquarters of the TNM isn't in your district, it does border your district. And you're in the Golden Triangle all the time. You're in Beaumont, Port Arthur, Mid-County all the time, not just your district all the way over to the Sabine River. But there is a strong influence of the TNM in that area. I don't think it's just because the headquarters are in Needleland. The growth of the organization is statewide. But to say that organizational officers are based there, some of the most active members are based there, I don't think is an overstatement. And thus, you've always been open to hearing what those members have had to say. And it's led to a really good working relationship with the officers and members of the TNM. Talk to us about that just for a moment, because it led eventually to HCR 77 and other legislation, fireworks and the knives legislation. Talk to us about that for a moment, James.
Claver, and I can make this a little your question a little more broader. If this election cycle, regardless of your partisanship, your ideology, what part of the state you're from, generally, I think the people were conveying to elected officials and candidates, we need you to listen. We need you to listen, and we need you to the extent that you can, listen to everybody. We don't want you over-promising and under-delivering. And that reminds me of another radio personality that brought this up. Claver, when we got started, sort of the buzzword to try to get elected was, we're going to repeal, expel, all types of peel, Obamacare. And it hasn't happened. And like this one radio personality said, we all know now you're not going to do it. You're just saying it. You're just out there shilling for votes. We get it. Okay. And it's gotten to the point now where people don't even take you serious. A lot of us serious when we talk about repealing Obamacare. So the point is listening, not over promising and under delivering, and trying to meet people where they are. Okay. And I think this is what this election cycle really conveyed to us. You and I, especially you, more so, Claver, we're very conservative. But we know that folks have kind of worn that term out a little bit because they know conservative has more, I guess you say, cachet, right? than the word Republican.
Oh,
So
it's
you
definitely
put
been
conservative.
diluted. It's been watered down,
Yes,
I think, to the
yes,
point.
yes.
I think the word conservative has almost been to the point has been corrupted.
Like Republican, like the
Correct.
word Republican. Yeah. So people are figuring that out. So it's just listening. And what I tell people, people, just get a little, you know, out of whack at times. Don't we all have a sense of wanting to be independent? Okay. When you were a young adult, you wanted to be independent from your parents. Okay. If you started as an insurance agent, maybe working for a big insurance firm, you probably had dreams and aspirations to be an independent insurance agent. So everyone has a spirit of wanting to be independent. Okay, we can disagree on how you get there. So talking with the Texas uh, nationalist movement, TNM, Texas independence, we all want independence. So that shouldn't be, something too extreme to talk about.
HRC 77, regardless of what the Ledge Council did to it, it was historical. And you were instrumental in filing that legislation. James, why don't you go through the story? Take us while you're driving along there. What highway are you on? You on 69 again, man? Where are you?
I'm on 69, and I would like to really say why I'm traveling north on 69 later on in our chat here, Claver. But look, and I'm not going to do the political thing and blame everything on HCR 77. Just like as legislators, I don't think we should point the fingers all at George P. about the Alamo, because we know that there have been pieces of legislation passed out of the legislature that has dealt with that issue. We can disagree on how he's going about it, possibly, but just to wake up one morning and say, oh, this is all bad and it's all this guy's fault. There were some votes taken on both floors of the legislature, Claver, and that's why the land office at least initiated some of what it's doing. But going back to your question, it was sort of when we were shopping the resolution around on the House floor, pretty much what members could be comfortable with. And that was the language that they were comfortable with at that time. Maybe they had some discussions with their constituents before the election, during the election. But once they got to Austin, that's what they were comfortable with, was legislation, which honestly, Claver, what we eventually filed as a resolution wasn't really too far from the state party platform as it relates to the 10th Amendment. I think our framers of our Constitution expected some level of independence in the terms of state sovereignty. Okay. Now, again, we can discuss and maybe even disagree on how we get there, but I believe our framers really see in this, of course, in this instance, 50 state and it all to be the same one unitary government, right? And everybody would be saluting the DC on everything. Apparently, that's not what they wanted. All right. So pretty much
We're getting some breakup with James on his signal. We're just going to hang tight and be patient. He is on 69, and so he could get some interference.
willing to at least sign on. Okay, I got you back.
Yep, sounds better, man.
Okay,
Looks
okay,
better
okay,
too. Good.
okay.
We know you're on 69, man. So that's
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
find some patches in
Well,
there that are gonna be dead.
well, uh, well, in 2018, I shouldn't have too many patches, but but has even inspired other great legislators that are friends with the sovereignty legislation in 2015 and 2017.
All right, James. Let's talk about 2019. How should the TNM, how should the movement evolve for this session? How should we be prepping for it? Not necessarily not having so much focus on the expectations of the legislators, but in order to ensure some success moving forward, incrementally, even perhaps, what should the TNM be expecting out of this particular session?
Hey, thank you for that, Claver. And Claver, remember when we started this journey back in 2010, going into session, um, and first, let me tell all the strong conservatives, constitutionalists out there, it, it, you know, it's okay to push us as legislators and to want a lot done. But I want to just thank y'all because of your movement, because of the work that you do. There's a lot of bad stuff, and you may not believe this, but you have to. There's a lot of stuff that y'all stop. And the reason that that bad stuff is stopped is because members of the legislature know that they have to come back home and look at you. They have to face you. So because you are always willing to test the frontiers, to test the limits of true freedom and ultimate liberty, you're also able to stop a lot of stuff. And I think that's why our framers, when they laid out the groundwork, the framework of our government, they made sure that there were more opportunities to kill a bill than to pass a bill. And y'all should want that. You should be glad that we can't just go up there and pass everything on our heart's desire.
Well, you bring up a
So,
good point. You bring up a
yes, sir.
good point, James. Would you counsel the organization? Of course, the ultimate desire, what we'd like to see manifest, is a binding referendum vote on self-determination and self-governance. Yes, we want that. But would you counsel the organization to expand its bandwidth, let the membership of the organization know, focus even more on other issues that are pertinent to
Yes,
the quality of life
yes,
right here, right now, such as the property tax issue, such as the
right,
franchise tax, such as the DREAM Act, such as, of course, the border invasion, education funding, and other issues.
yes.
Do you
The
believe
Alamo, the
the
Alamo,
of course, the Alamo, 7 o'clock tonight, the highlight, featured main event conversation that we're going to have. Do you believe the organization has now achieved enough statewide notoriety, or at the very minimum, pink dome notoriety, to where on these other issues, they can have an influence, they can flex some muscle? James.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And when you look at all of those issues, they do point to an ultimate aim, that is state sovereignty. Okay. Um, Obviously, if the more burden you can get off of homeowners or property owners in general, that adds to individual sovereignty. And when you add individual sovereignty into collective sovereignty, that's state sovereignty.
Well, what about that,
Anytime,
James? What about that, James? I mean, let's look at, say, um, string attached unfunded federal mandates or
yes,
budgetary
yes,
issues. I mean, should an organization that is getting the gravitas of TNM be discussing the issues of Medicare or Medicaid expansion or government
yes,
education, the federal
yes,
programs,
yes.
federal
And
federal highway bills, or the farm bill,
right,
things like that that
right,
have an impact on
right,
Texas quality of life?
right, right. and because we know that those are promises in many instances, fiscal promises, that really the federal government in the long term, if it continues on its current fiscal path, they will not be able to keep. Here's another thing. One criticism we have on Medicaid, it is a one size fits all beyond the fiscal situation. We should be coming up with Texas style solutions for Texas. When I study the healthcare issue, the medical care issue, Claver, just our state demographics is totally different from, say, a state like Utah. Because of the diversity of our state, we tend to have a higher ratio of our citizens that suffer from ailments like diabetes, heart disease, ailments like that.
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure.
Victim of stroke.
Yes. Whereas in Utah, because of their demographics, they tend to face a lot of different, cancers and so forth. So that's why we need a state to state, and maybe as an extension, a community to community solutions to these issues. And let me throw this out here, because one other great conservative, I think it was Michael Quinn Sullivan, brought this up. As we're pushing the federal government to exercise and respect state sovereignty and federalism, maybe Texas legislature needs to start exercising some of that type of respect as it relates to unfunded mandates on local governing entities.
In other words, the type of pushback we've been seeing from the state level on unfunded mandates from the national government, Austin is practicing the same type of quote unquote tyranny on local municipalities and counties.
Yeah, and then when you look at most of your local entities, counties, school districts, cities, et cetera, right now their only taxing revenue source, or mostly their only taxing revenue source, is property taxes. So I think there's a lot of, quite a few fingers pointing back to the Texas legislature on the property tax issue. Obviously, there's the state property tax code that's driving property tax burden, but there's also this exercise of unfunded mandates. So as we're saying, federal government, respect state sovereignty, back away, maybe we need to show some respect and example in that, and have a better relationship with our local governing entities.
Well, that ties in very well with the previous conversation we had with David Thomas Roberts, whose topic of conversation dealt with building good relationships with those that hold public office, especially our legislators. And I brought up to him that one of the mantras, one of the sayings we have around RER is the defense of liberty begins in your own backyard. And there you are highlighting this importance once again, that you can perhaps even build more intimate relationships with your county judge, your county commissioner, members of your city council and mayor, your school board. And I want to bring this back to TNM. If the membership, the rank and file membership of TNM would indeed engage not just on Pink Dome issues and Pink Dome legislators, but their county judge, commissioners, mayor, city council, I think it builds an even stronger relationship with the community as a whole, the electorate as a whole, that the organization becomes maybe a bit more known than just the preeminent organization advocating for Texas independence, but generally on liberty issues, they're willing to flex their muscle. It may actually help with even more gravitas in Austin and push forward the referendum issue. Your thoughts on this, James?
You knocked it out of the ballpark one thing, you kind of watch what the other party is doing. And one thing that they did very, very good this election cycle, they had people running in every position, Clay, from dog catcher to governor. And they
I think the pine tar is providing interference. Everybody hang tight. You should be out of the dead zone here pretty soon. Whatever he's saying, he looks serious. That's all I can say, Daniel. You know, what's really sad is that yesterday I was giving the kid from McGill University, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, a hard time about Wi-Fi, and then well, we've got this going on. We only have a few more minutes with James. We'd like to finish strong with him.
That
I may have to apologize.
Oh, no, not the pine tar. I got you back. I got you.
I think you're coming back in, James.
Okay, good.
Give it a little bit more time, man. I think you're coming back in now. Here you go. Okay, good. We got you. It looks pretty solid now.
Where did you guys
if anybody knows,
okay,
James,
where did you guys drive?
James, we're still losing it really bad, man. The frame is freezing up a little bit, and let's see what Daniel wants to do. Try to be patient with the broadband coming back, but it's taking a hard time. It's struggling coming back.
No, I've got a good signal.
It's not performing well on this end. But what we were talking about, James, I don't know if you can address this. I don't know if the signal will come back here. But one of the things what we were talking about is TNM focusing on other.
Yeah, once I get a crawl K.
Yeah, there you go, James. I think that's
okay.
I
got you back now.
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
Okay, I got you back. So where did I drop off at?
Well, we were talking about being locally involved or broadening out, pun intended, the bandwidth of Texas nationalist movement to other issues beyond the referendum. It may actually be good PR for the local voters, especially when dealing with the local issues, and also build those relationships with the legislators, not merely on this issue, but others where TNM can be influential.
Yes. And you knocked it out the ballpark on that. You know, watching the Democrats this latest election cycle, Claver, they did a real good job in recruiting candidates in as many races as possible.
James, I have the numbers. I have the numbers on that. I have the numbers.
Okay.
Okay. Check this out. The number of Republicans that did not have Democrat opposition in the general election were 19 races. the number of Democrats that did not have Republican opposition, in talking about the Texas House, almost double, 37 races. That's a party
Right.
that's playing defense. And the women,
Yes.
60 women on the ballot out of 150 races, and 30 of those women went after a third of the Republican House caucus. Gender war played out on the ballot, James.
Yes. And what they were able to do, they knew they were not going to achieve success in a lot of those races. But it was an opportunity for them, even though it's a failed message, but they were able to teach, preach, and articulate their liberal, progressive, failed message, okay? And it was a reverberating commercial. It was a bad commercial, but it was reverberating. And so they were running for school board. They were running for county clerk. They were running for all that. What you will find out in local positions, especially locally elected positions, there is an agenda there that you can get going either each week or every month. You don't have to wait for the legislature to, every 2 years. There are things, your school board meeting is once a month. Your county commissioner's meeting, commissioner's court, is meeting at least once a month. Just think about how fast liberty-minded people can get control of their county commissioner's court. You can do that in 4 years. 5 on the county commissioner's court. Within 4 years, all 5 of those seats are open. You have impact on property taxes. You have impact on transportation. Remember, a county government is a local governing entity of the state. So whatever we're doing on the state level, you're going to be pretty much doing on the county level. So so as we're trying to devolve power in the legislature, we're trying to devolve power back to the local government. If we don't have strong conservatives, liberty-minded Texans at the local level ready to assume and catch that power, contain it, and use it in a liberty-minded way, then you'll just have big government locally. And I find out that can big government at the state or the national level.
Well, and the thing is, James, is about filling up the ballot with liberty-driven Texans is you can't predict where lightning is going to strike, but you can guarantee that everybody on the ballot, lightning isn't going to strike there.
Well, and that's another point that I wanted to bring out, and I just lost it in my train of thought. Some folks woke up. Some of those folks woke up. They didn't think they were going to win when they started. Of the vote when they filed, but some of those folks actually got through, and shocked and surprised a lot of our Republican incumbents. So, you come from a strong football tradition in Jefferson County, Claver, and you know that if you're going to compete, you got to show up. And one thing I can give the Democrats this past cycle,
They showed
up, brother. They showed up.
And you can't score many points on defense either. You have to be on the offensive.
Right. And look, I'm not going to get mad at the Democrats. They did what they were supposed to do. Okay? I got to get mad at us. And I do believe where you're taking this conversation, I do believe in the House, electorally, we were too deep.
We lost him.
We should have. No, I got you back.
Okay, good.
Okay. Claver, we should have contested. We should have been more aggressive. We may criticize and talk about Dan Patrick, but he was aggressive, and evidence of that was Pete Flores' victory in South Texas.
Mm-hmm. James, just real quick, man. I only have a few minutes left. I do want to touch on the 2019 legislature just a little bit. With potentially a new speaker coming in, are you
Yes.
are you anticipating being reassigned to your chairmanship on the corrections committee?
Well, the quick answer to that is I don't know. You know, one of the things that you and I have always talked about was the integrity of the House, having a speaker that abided by the rules of the House, the Constitution of this state, and statutes of this state, and getting out of this pay for play, kleptocracy, and all of that. And when I have my discussions with Speaker Presumptive, I guess that's what we're calling it now, but my discussions with Dennis Bonnen has been on how do we situate the House to lift up Texas, not, you know, in the palace intrigue, who's going to be up, who's going to be down, because one, that's inappropriate statutorily and constitutionally. And this is what a lot of us had a problem with back in the day, is that the people were going out, they were working hard to elect Republicans and conservatives, but it just seems like there were a lot of insider deals being made. So what I'm doing is I'm going to finish strong in the committee chairmanship that I've been appointed to now. And Bonnen, if you do it the right way, and I think he did it the right way, Republican caucus vote first and partisanship circles in the House, that we want to make sure, we want to situate him to be successful. And we think if we do that, that lifts up the House to lift up Texas. And I want to think I was probably one of the first chairmen to lend my support to him. And we think that puts us in a position. And look, let's just go ahead and put it on the table, Claver. I think for the first 3 or 4 terms, we were not a chairman. And so you walked in Lufkin with me many days. And when people answered the door, none of them asked me what committee I want to be on or do I want to be a chairman. They wanted to know, what was I a believer? Was
Right.
I wanting to go to Austin to uplift the Constitution? Okay. Those are the things that they were concerned about. And so that told me, yes, would I like to have opportunities of leadership? Do I think they can enhance my opportunity to serve my district in Texas? Yes. But I never made it a point to say that in order for me to represent my district, I have to have a gavel in my hand. Because honestly, when it comes to protecting freedom of religion, liberties, Second Amendment liberties, 10th Amendment state rights, and all other liberties and the freedoms we're concerned with, I don't think people really give a hill of beans if you're having a gavel. They're going to look at your voting record and where you stand on those issues. So I think really a mark of a great legislator is what he or she can do without a gavel. Yeah, anybody can do a whole lot with a gavel, right? Okay, but what can you do with little determines what you can do with many or much.
All right, James, I only have about 90 seconds left, but just real quick, just the idea, just the agenda, the list of speakers, the lineup of participants we have for this legislative action workshop of the Texas Nationalist Movement, including those who are elected officials, speaks to the fact that being associated with the TNM, that taint really is kind of gone. They see the TNM being more of a positive organization right now, and maybe even see the issue of a referendum being politically expedient.
Yes, and look, I don't know if there was ever a taint,
Um, and Claver, I've told you this before, and I still will stand by it today. When it comes to personalities, people in the fight that can really articulate conservative values and can, you know, have a feel of his or her audience, I think of individuals like yourself. And if anything that we can get from you is how we talk about issues and the context we talk about issues. Okay. And so I think sometimes as Republicans, and especially as elected Republican officials, we're not talking about issues in a context where the people can digest them. Okay. And we're going to have to find a way, and you know this, we've had these discussions. The Democrats do a great job in touching that emotional nerve, that emotional spirit. As Republicans, we're all about the policy, right? And that's all good and fine, but it's about the hearts and minds of people. And that's what we have to do. And I think as we continue to do that, organizations like TNM and other great conservative organizations will compete for those hearts and minds, and we'll be able to do great things in the future again.
That's State Representative James White, HD12, out of Deep East Texas, Southeast Texas, getting ready for
19.
HD 19, getting ready for the 2019 legislative session. I want to thank James for video conferencing in today, actually rescheduling and having to participate while he's driving on State Highway 69, a road that I'm very familiar with. James, thanks so much.
We're on the great one, US 190. God bless you now.
All right, hang in there just for a second, James, while we say toodaloo. I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the video conference, the Legislative Action Workshop of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Just a little housekeeping. The video that you've, by the way, James just brought up the idea of the emotional plea, if you will, your own personal story. If you missed our conversation yesterday with Don Tier, field director of the Texas Nationalist Movement, I would suggest that you go to tnm.me and you take a look at that conversation, the video, and share it. Beautiful, fantastic PowerPoint presentation that Don gave us, and the conversation afterwards was very rich and filled with some really good consultation and encouragement. Also, later on in just a couple of hours, we're going to have that fantastic Alamo panel discussion featuring former Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson and Texas Nationalist Movement's very own Daniel Miller. If you want to be a part of that or any future conversations during this Legislative Action Workshop, you need to go to tnm.me/TNMLaw, TNMLAW, and sign up. Clutters your inbox a little bit, but it's the best way in order to reserve your seat in the video conference room. And so you need to go there and sign up for each individual session that you would like to attend. And the unique URL link will be sent to your inbox. And that's how you connect with each one of these fantastic TNM LAW conversations. And I'm so thankful and proud to be moderating these conversations for you and for the Texas Nationalist Movement. I want to also ask you to download the Raging Elephants Radio app. Just like the TNM and other conservative, liberty-driven organizations nationally and perhaps even internationally, we've suffered the slings and arrows of big tech and have had to endure the censorship. The best way to do that is get rid of the middleman of a Facebook or a Twitter. The best way to do that is to download the Raging Elephants Radio app on your app store or in your Google Play. That gets rid of the middleman, that gets rid of the censorship. We are your trustworthy news network when it comes to Texas liberty-driven information and commentary. So please download the Raging Elephants Radio app and listen to the best Texas talk that's provided at RagingElephantsRadio.com. Just in a couple of hours from now, it's going to be the featured panel for the Legislative Action Workshop. It's going to be the discussion on the Alamo. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are. Spread the news. Seats are limited, so if you haven't reserved, Get over to tnm.me/TNMLAW, TNM Law, and sign up to get your URL link and your seat for the Alamo discussion at 7 p.m. Texas time, the only time that matters. I'm Apostle Claver T. Kamau Imani, the Christian politician, your ultra-conservative soul brother. My enemies under the pink dome call me the purifier. From Houston, may the Lord Jesus bless you. May the Lord Jesus bless the future independent sovereign republic of Texas.